Hello and welcome to Connect. I'm your host, Randy Shabilo. On today's show, we'll have Rita Field from the Saskatoon Crisis Intervention Service and Alex Rogalski and Lindsay Knight from the Saskatchewan Arts Board and their 70th anniversary. As always, we'd like to connect with you.
Tweet us at Shaw TV Saskatoon. Follow us on Facebook. Check out Shaw TV Saskatoon on YouTube to watch past episodes, or email shawtv10@shaw.ca with any future guest or topic suggestions.
Saskatoon Crisis Intervention Service and Mobile Crisis have been around since 1980. I've invited Rita Field to come down today and give us a little bit of insight into what's new and what's coming up. So Rita, thank you for making some time.
Thank you for having me.
I want to first talk a little bit about the crisis management and the number of calls that the agency gets, because it is quite astounding from the outside looking in. What can you tell us about that?
Well, in 1980, we probably had 4,000 or 5,000 calls a year. We're well over 26,000 calls a year. So that's service requests in the office, most of them coming in on the telephone, but also the mobile response, which is unique to our service, and our sister services or companion services in Regina and Prince Albert.
So when you look at the length of time that the organization's been serving the community, and just that sheer call volume, how many staff would you have, and what types of calls are you called out to?
Well, we staff for peak time, which would be, we're very busy on weekends. We're a 24-hour service, 8 o'clock until midnight. We are available 24/7, and as few as 2 staff, so 1 team to respond, and as many as 5 at peak time. So really being careful with our resources. We are a community-based organization, a nonprofit community-based organization, so we do the best we can with the resources that we have.
And would you work with the police, or do people contact you directly, or how does that engagement start?
Well, we're part of the emergency continuum in Saskatoon, but sort of the quiet part that people won't necessarily know about unless they require the service. It's sort of like having insurance, and it's kind of there, and when you need it, you really need it. The emergency continuum includes police, hospital emergency, fire, ambulance, and we, as the mobile crisis arm of our service, responds to the social, emotional, and psychological problems that surface.
Well, I can share with our audience that, on a number of police ride-alongs that I've been on, that there was nothing left for the police to do but to contact your agency. There was a breathed sigh of relief that someone else was coming to take over and mop up, if you will. But the network that you must have to kind of help families and individuals through, because there's suicidal type of calls that you may get, or family breakdowns and so on. What is it that you're starting to see, or have you noticed any trends in the community that's coming back to you?
Well, in terms of demographics, with those 26,000 calls, half of them involve children with, the calls involve children with, families with children underage. So it could be anything in that category: teen behavior, parenting challenges if they're dealing with economic difficulties, anything you can imagine. Really, as a generalist service, anything can come our direction. We find that there's an overlap with family stress and mental health and addictions for certain. And if we look at it, probably 80% of our calls have some element of mental health and addictions. So what are we seeing? The complexity has grown. So it may be substandard housing, as well as financial stress, as well as children that might have challenges in school, or behavior difficulties, and so the parents are stressed as well, and there may be addictions in the family. So With the, we know that there's a lot of discussion about the availability of drugs in our community, and I think with that availability comes opportunity, and unfortunately, it's can lead to addictions and some difficulties.
You are working with the Housing First program, and is that making a difference in terms of networking and your availability to guide some people into housing that's safe?
Well, we're going into the 4th year or so in that program, and with the support of the United Way and with the federal government housing partnership strategy dollars. And the whole Housing First model is a harm reduction model. It says, let's work together. You need the housing. We can provide the support and make that human connection. We build some trust and get the housing, and then work on some of the issues that may have led to the homelessness. It's actually a really effective model. We work with the individuals who are on the extreme end, who would have been homeless for a minimum of 6 months and most more than 4 years and up into decades at times.
So there's something happening on February 23rd, which is kind of another segue into why you're here, and that was to talk about this film that's coming out for people to see.
Well, I mentioned we get 26,000 calls a year, service requests. One of the requests that happened in late spring was we got a call from a young filmmaker from Saskatoon, Eric Thiessen, and he wanted to submit a proposal to the National Film Board for a mentorship opportunity where he could do a short documentary on something of interest to him. And something extraordinary, that's the words he used, I think, that's happening in Saskatchewan or Saskatoon. And he had heard about our service but realized he knew very little about it, particularly the mobile crisis arm of our service, where we are available in that emergency continuum 24/7. And so he asked us, will you partner with me? Can I put together a film about your service? And so that's how it all started.
When you had that opportunity, was there a difference, or can you explain the difference between the mobile and crisis intervention service? Because they are two separate entities of a way.
It can be confusing. Our formal title for the agency is the Saskatoon Crisis Intervention Service, and we have the mobile arm of our service, 24/7. We also have the police and crisis team that we've added in the last few years, and that has been in the public eye because it has just enhanced our partnership with Saskatoon Police Service, where we actually have a police officer, a designated police officer who works for 10 to 12 hours a day with one of our specialized crisis workers. So there's that arm of our service. And then we have the Housing First Journey Home that you mentioned, which is more of a casework focus related to housing. And then we have a mental health program as well, referred to as Crisis Management Service, where we work with individuals who fall through the gaps and are trying to get the support they need to survive in the community.
And what was it that drew Eric? It was an obvious interest, and what was it that his takeaway was? Can you share some elements of that with us at all?
Well, I think he and his film crew were very surprised at the volume of calls coming in. So it's filmed on a single night. It's called Talking at Night. It's filmed in real time. It's a slice of life for the crisis, for mobile crisis. So the volume and the range of calls and the engagement that was required from our staff to connect, communicate, listen, and all with a very caring approach and attitude, and very functional. And he also, I had to remind him that we're not just a telephone service. That's what's unique here in Saskatchewan, a generalist service where we can also go out where the crisis is happening. So there is some filming there with staff moving fairly quickly to co-respond with other emergency service providers in the community or on their own as a team.
It's a short documentary, and obviously none of this could be pre-planned if it's happening real time. When is it playing, and how would people access? This will be on February 23rd.
February 23rd
Right.
at the Reme Art Gallery at 8 o'clock. It's free. It's open to the public. And the National Film Board set this up for the 3 films that were mentored through this project. So there will be 2 other films as well that are about 8 minutes long, and a little bit of discussion, questions and answers. I think it's exciting that it's at the Reme because it's all about celebrating the Saskatchewan landscape, and then of course there's artwork in there from all over the world, and the Mobile Crisis Service is also a human service that is part of the Saskatchewan landscape, and so I think it'll be where human service meets art, because this film doesn't have any narration. It's not telling our story. It is the story of mobile crisis.
I think that you touched on that very eloquently with what I've seen, and I think we'll expect from the film. And I want to thank you for making time and coming down and enlightening us about this. So it is February 23rd. It's called Talking at Night, and I want to thank you for making that available and coming down and sharing that with us.
Thank you for having me.
Good. Stay with us. We'll be right back.